Alright, so I'm gonna give you my thoughts about Diablo 4 here. Diablo 4 overall seems like a decent game. I wouldn't say it's great when you expect like a great RPG. I wouldn't say it's terrible either. It is basically a hybrid of Diablo 3 and Lost Ark for the most part, with some elements taken from other games here and there, like Lost Epoch or Path of Exile or World of Warcraft or Grim Dawn as well, you could say. Now, first of all, graphics do generally look amazing. There are some textures here and there that are a little bit lazy, like for example, this texture on this armor looks not as good as the rest. There are some textures here and there that I've seen in the game that are also not as great, but overall the game looks amazing. The art style is just very dark and gritty and very Diablo 2-like, not as like colorful as Diablo 3, maybe not quite as dark and gritty as Diablo 2, but in my opinion it's like perfect, honestly. Like the art style is perfect, the like quality of the like environment especially is like really good. This is especially true for these snow environments. As you can see, the like footprints you leave in the snow look very good. So overall graphics should be a 10, like environments are a 10. However, some of the textures, like the armor texture being like a little bit like lower quality, make this like a 9 out of 10 for me, or like 9.5 out of 10. Combat overall feels really good as well. It is very flashy, skills feel very responsive. However, there are some skills, like for example the sorcerer, that has some weird like animation times, and like for example you can walk after casting a skill, but you cannot cast an ability. Like for example here I'm casting my flame wall into firebolt, spamming my firebolt, only now the character can cast it. So there's some like weirder like casting animations, or like I don't know, there's like wind ups or like wind downs of animations for casting that in some cases make combat feel a little bit weird, or like at least some skills feel a little bit like unresponsive. But this is mostly the case on Sorcerer. I did not have a single ability feel like that on the Rogue. Like the Rogue feels super snappy, the Barb as well for me. The Sorcerer has some animations, like for example this Firewall, where it kind of like locks you into the like wind down of the animation. That feels a little bit weird. But overall I would give the combat like maybe like a 9 out of 10. It is very nice. I wish Grim Dawn, for example, had this kind of combat for the most part. It is really good. Let's look at the world. Now, this is the entire world that you will be able to traverse in this game. It is an open world. It is very much pretty much the same open world MMO style kind of world like in Lost Ark or in like pretty much any other MMO, honestly. I mean, the world is literally just an MMO. This can be good and bad depending on like what you prefer. If you prefer like a linear story, then this game is not gonna be to your liking. If you like the open world more, then that is gonna be to your liking. Overall, I would say it is rather more interesting than less interesting. However, some of the dungeons, like the game has I think like 140, 180, something like that dungeons, they have, some of them are really good, but some of them feel very much like an Elden Ring in a way. Like all these like side dungeons in Elden Ring, they had like reused tile sets, they had reused like, I mean that's kind of normal, but they also had like reused like minions, mobs, bosses, like reskinned bosses, basically like the same boss, just like a different name, maybe like one different ability. So some of them just feel not quite as unique. So if you compare it to like Grim Dawn dungeons, right, like Grim Dawn has maybe like 5 dungeons, but like the like seasonal content on top, 6 or even more dungeons. However, they are all like unique, right? You have like unique enemies in each dungeon and like a unique boss and so on. Like nothing really like feels repetitive. In this game, some dungeons feel really good, but others feel more or less like the same that you have played already. So I wish in a way they would maybe like have half of the amount of dungeons, but make them more unique. So yeah, in my opinion, like there are too many dungeons actually. I thought it's gonna be a good thing to have many dungeons, but actually like too many dungeons because they are not like distinct enough from each other, at least not in Act 1. However, the world is really big and the beta has like 1 out of 5 areas unlocked, so if you consider basically this being like 1/5 of the entire like world to explore, like this game is gonna be huge. Like there's like tons of content to like go through if you are like full clearing all the areas, right? Like if you're going to every single dungeon, every single side quest, every single main quest and so on, then it's like very very big actually. If you're only going for like the main quest and like a couple other quests that you, or like a couple other dungeons that you want to do for your build, then it's not gonna be quite as like extensive, but you will need to like probably do all the dungeons anyway to get to like max level, because leveling doesn't seem to be like super quick right now. And I would say the same that I just said about the dungeons also goes for the side quests. Like some of the side quests do remind me a little bit of Lost Ark. Not necessarily fetch quests. They are, like, overall I would say the quest design is better than Lost Ark, like not quite as MMO-y, but still there are like, yeah, like too many that are basically do the same thing, just like in a different like way. And sometimes there are still like progress bars when you like click on things, just like when you press G in Lost Ark, so that can be for like a guy that only wants to play an RPG and not an MMO, can be a little bit annoying. World and quest and dungeon design, I would say maybe like a 7 or an 8. I would say the story and everything, like it looks great, but it's just like a little bit too like repetitive here and there. So yeah, like maybe like a 7 or 8. The itemization, for those of you that don't know, they're basically white items, which are like trash, blue items, so like common items, which can have up to 2 affixes. I don't even have one right now. Then there are yellow items, which have 3 to 5 affixes, like rare items basically. These can be useful. And then you have legendary items, which have 4 affixes and 1 legendary affix, or rather like legendary aspect, they're called in this game, which can be compared to say like a skill modifier in Grim Dawn. There are some that directly modify a skill, and then there are some that basically like do something like a proc that's like more generic, like for example, this one right here, like whenever you are injured, like whenever you drop below 35% of your HP, you get like unstoppable, so like immune to crowd control for 4 seconds. And then there can be aspects like, for example, this one. Each time chain lightning bounces off you, you gain 4 mana. So this one is like a skill modifier in Grim Dawn, like it directly affects and modifies a skill. On top of that, there will be also unique items, which will be very, very rare, and they will have like true unique stats, which are not comparable to like yellows or orange items. Now these orange legendaries basically have 4 affixes, and they are like pretty much random as well, just like on the blues and the rares. The reason why rares are still interesting in this game is because they can roll up to 5 affixes, and then you can craft one of these aspects onto the rare item. So over in here at the so-called occultists, once you're level 25 or higher, and also once you have the Codex of Power, you can use a yellow item of your choosing and craft a Codex of Power onto that, or a aspect from your inventory. Now these aspects from the inventory you got by basically destroying a legendary item. Like for example, you can destroy this item here, and then you will gain the aspect. You will gain this like orange star marked affix, the aspect, out of the item. Extract aspect right here, and now it will be in your inventory over here, and like in the aspects. And now you can use this aspect to craft on an item once, right? You can like put an aspect in here, for example, and then this item will have the aspect from the former legendary. This will cost like a little bit of materials, and then you can just like click on imprint aspect, and then the aspect will be on your item. So this is kind of cool, and honestly it's like pretty much the only really like interesting way you can craft this game. And you can also enchant an item, which means that you reroll one of the affixes on the item. Like this item, for example, has 3 affixes. You can choose one of these like stats, enchant, accept, and you will get, for example, like more total armor or more max life instead of the dex now instead. Or you can also like choose to not change it at all. And from then on, you can only ever change that one affix. So yeah, you basically can reroll one affix, just like in Diablo 3. I think the system also existed already in Diablo 3. On top of that, over here at the jeweler, you can, as is classic in Diablo 3 fashion, basically add sockets to items, remove gems from sockets, put gems into sockets. Pretty much the same system from Diablo 3 as well, and you can like, you know, craft higher tier gems from like lower tier gems, literally the same as in Diablo 3. Then you also have this alchemist. At the alchemist you can craft, first of all you can like rather upgrade just your potion. This is really not very interesting. It's just like you upgrade your potion every like 10 levels basically, or like 15 levels. But you can also craft so-called elixirs. These are a little bit more interesting. I mean, kind of like the ointments or like potions or elixirs like in Grim Dawn, right? Grants more armor, grants more dodge chance, grants more shadow resist, poison resist, lightning resist, and so on. You can only have one elixir active at one time, And you probably want to have one active all the time, honestly, because they also all give you like 5% more experience. So make sure, if you're leveling, to always have one elixir active pretty much all the time. Whenever you don't know which one to take, I would probably like always have the iron one that has like increased armor on you, because armor is like pretty much useful on any character, and it's also like pretty much the cheapest to craft. So overall, itemization and crafting, I would say it's actually kind of fine. It's not as like complex as Path of Exile, it's not like as deep as Path of Exile. It's also not quite as like intuitive slash cool slash deep as Lost Ark actually with the forging system. I think the forge is still like one of the best crafting systems like in all RPGs there are. I mean, it's okay though, like the affixes are kind of fine. These like aspects are kind of cool because in a way, it is a little bit like Grim Dawn, because these could be looked at like the same way as like skill modifiers from like monster freak points in Grim Dawn. But one difference, like you can either get them on items that drop randomly, or you can basically target farm some of the aspects as like from dungeons. Like you get some of the aspects as dungeon rewards, like whenever you kill the boss of a dungeon, you get like specific aspects that you just have all the time, and you can like always use these to craft the aspect on your item. These will not be consumed, unlike the ones that you get from items. But of course you will get different aspects from the dungeons compared to the ones that you get from drops. So overall, crafting, I would say maybe like a 7, or like itemization like a 7 out of 10, or like a 6 or 7. I mean, it's totally fine. There are no sets in the game, which for some people might seem like disappointing. I think it's actually more interesting at this point, but we'll see. I mean, sets can be good if they're like made well and not like as OP as like in Diablo 3, or to a certain degree also like as in Grim Dawn. But yeah, we'll see. It's a bit basic right now, but it can be improved on. Now, the skill tree. The skill tree... Yeah, so, it reminds me a lot of Diablo 2, like in a way, like you have like basic tiers, and like whenever you like put a point here, you move like one step closer to the next tier. So a bit like Last Epoch's passive points, or like Diablo 2's like skill tree. The problem that I personally have here is in Diablo 2, you had like a level restriction, I think, to like put more points into a skill. Here you don't, you can just like rank up a skill up to 5, like all the way instantly. However, if you look at the scaling, wait, let me just like take out this one real quick. If you look at the scaling, 900, 990, 1000, 1100, like it's kind of terrible scaling per point, right? Like, first of all, you usually just want like 1 point on your skills, because like putting more points doesn't really like do that much. So I wonder like, how do you even scale this? I mean, it's a little weird. I think it would be better if you had these like level restricted, like in Diablo 2 or like in Path of Exile as well, basically with like the gem levels. But have the actual levels that you put into the skill be like a bit more impactful. But I mean, if the balance other than that would be fine, that would be like not a big issue. However, like the balance right now, like if you look at some of the just like base numbers of some skills, are just like crazy imbalanced in my opinion. I mean, no ARPG is like perfect when it comes to balance, and Grim Dawn isn't either. Definitely not. But like some of these skills, like with literally no investment, they're like the same skill, the same investment on the same tier, and they just do like twice or thrice the damage, and like are more reliable as well. It's just like, I don't know what to think of that. You might argue that yes, but what about like skill modifiers? Like what about aspects basically? Like what if an aspect that you can get like very early in Act 1 makes like this skill just as good as this skill, for example? No. Like some of them do enhance like certain skills, yes, but some of the more extreme examples right here, they just need to like be balanced properly. I don't know, like they're not like balanced properly yet. Also, when you go like into a skill, right, you have like 5 points into the base skill, then you have one basically like modifier, and then you have 2 more modifiers. You could like compare these to like the runes from Diablo 3, right? In Diablo 3, you had 5 runes, something like that. Here you only have 2. So, or like this one doesn't even have like any choice. Like you just have like the choice to either pick these or to not pick these. I don't know. Like if you want to use a skill, you will most likely, especially like on damage skills, like use the first one anyway. And then you pick the one that like gives you more either damage or like more mana regen if you're like struggling with regen. I mean, I don't feel like there's like enough choice here. Like in the base skill at least, in the base skill tree. The base skill tree just looks like very shit out to me, and you basically have it figured out like after maybe like 10 or 20 minutes, I don't know. Depends like what you want to play, but some things because of the balance are just like way worse than others right now at least. However, that's like only with Act 1, so there might be like other aspects like in other acts that I don't know of yet that make like certain skills way better. But to me, this looks a little bit disappointing. On the other hand, you could argue, well, Diablo 2 and Diablo 3 didn't really have like deeper skill trees either. So compared to like Diablo 3 and Diablo 2, it's still like okay. Yes, but maybe I was like expecting too much out of this. On the other hand, there's also gonna be this like Paragon system over here at level 50 plus, which we do not have access to in the beta. However, you can, for example, check them out in like this kind of scuffed build calculator right here. And you will see that, like this is the skill tree here. You can see that up here you have these like Paragon passive skill trees. Now these Paragon trees are at least more complex than like in Diablo 3. You will see tons of like main stats here. However, there are others like Bulwark, Tenacity, Inner Strength that look more unique. Or like here Bonebreaker, like overpowers with 200 bludgeoning weapons, stuns, blah blah blah. Like there are some like basically notables. You could compare them to like some notables from like PoE. Not quite as complex probably, but there is like a lot more like customizability here if you like look at this. This is only from Barb, right? These are only like the Barb passive trees. So there are like tons of trees here that you can spec into, and like this looks a lot better than like just the skill tree. So maybe there's like some hope basically in the passives at least. And then also I have some hope in the aspects that you might get like later on from like either legendary items or like dungeons that also might make this entire like theory crafting for the skills a little bit more complex as it is right now. From what I've seen though in the beta, I would give the skill tree maybe like, I don't know, like a 4 or a 3 out of 10. Like, yeah, maybe like a 4. I don't know. It's just a little bit underwhelming because honestly right now, mostly not only because of like how little customizability there is in the skill tree, if you compare it to, for example, Last Epoch or like Path of Exile, but also because of the balance. Like the balance just seemed very, very off right now, and these skills aren't like hard to balance. Like they just literally use weapon damage. It's the same as in Diablo 3, right? The skills only always have like % weapon damage, and it's just like a percentage game, right? If you have like a skill like chaining like 6 times, it's like 42 damage times, if it's like chaining to the same target, like times 3, right? 42 times 3 is just like higher than 5 times 17. And like these don't even hit the enemy, like, and these have like auto aim. Like it was the most apparent to me in the sorcerer tree. The other trees weren't quite as like bad in my opinion when it came to balance. So yeah, hopefully they will get the balance right. But I mean, knowing Blizzard, like their history from Diablo 3, you could have your doubts about that. Like they didn't balance Diablo 3 very well, to be honest. So yeah, I'm a little bit like doubtful about like the skill tree overall. Character stats: you have attack and defense, just like called attack, power, and armor now. And then life and strength, intelligence, willpower, dex, which have like different effects depending on like which class you are. Almost the same as Diablo 3 in a way. Then you also have, for defense, you actually also have resistances though, like fire rest, cold rest, lightning rest, poison rest, shadow rest, and these resistances work multiplicatively with like the stats you have in gear. For example, if I take off this ring, which has 16.3% cold rest, you can see my cold rest not jumping from 25 to like, what should it be, like 42 basically, but instead to like 38. Because it works multiplicatively and not additively. Which honestly is kind of fine. This, on one hand, of course, means that it is better to have a ton of rest on one item compared to having like lots of items with like little resistances. So you do want to basically like make sure that whenever you have an item, you have like as much resistances as possible on that item. That will probably not really be in your power, but rather just be like in the well, like internal tiers of affixes that you get, like the higher the item level goes. Overall though, I actually kind of like the multiplicative system. Both Last Epoch as well as Diablo 3, Diablo 4 rather, try to solve the problem of like the old ARPG problem that like the more resistances you have, the more valuable every single other point of resistance that you get becomes, right? Like going from like 60 to 80% resistances literally makes you take half the damage, whereas going from like 0 to 20 makes you only take like 20% less damage. So like the last 20% resistances, which could be the same on the gear, are like basically way more impactful than the first 20% resistances that you get on gear. Now this game does make it a little bit more like diminishing to counteract that. I mean, the 16% here going from 25 to 37 still basically means that you take 17% less damage. So basically what is written on this is more or less actually more accurate to what you actually take less in damage compared to like a usual like additive system. Last Epoch tries to solve this by just like giving enemies like 75% penetration, basically meaning that when you have like 0 resistances, you have minus 75. So going from like minus 75 to 0 means you take like not 75% less damage, but like, I don't know, 43% less damage, making resistances less impactful in that way. I personally honestly like Diablo 4 system possibly a bit more right now. Not gonna lie. Like stats and so on seem, I mean, apart from like attack and defense, armor being like 50% effective against anything non-physical. Yeah, I don't know. It's like it's okay actually. I feel like it might be better than I think it is. I don't know. I would give it like a 5 maybe, but because of like attack defense, basically just like being renamed and that's it. But it might be like 6 or 7 actually. Depends on like how you enjoy the game. One thing that I do have to say though, the UI. I honestly think the functionality of the UI is for the most part good. However, I would have liked just to have like a search bar here. Like you can only search for keywords, but say you want to like search for things that stun. There is no stun keyword here. And there are some things that like interact with stun, and you cannot search for stun. So, I mean, Last Epoch just wins this, for example. Like there's just like a search bar, like a simple search bar is simpler than and better than like any like keyword search. I know this is made for console, because on console it's hard to write, right? You rather want keywords in console. However, this sucks for PC. Like just a standard like search bar where you can type would be way better. Same for like your stash, right? There's no, I believe, no actual like search bar for your stash for your items either. So that does suck. The font, some of the font is fine. Like for example, this, my name here is fine. The font up here is fine, but some other font is like so bad. It looks like Arial or like Times New Roman. I don't know, like what is this font, dude? Also, no matter which kind of glove you're dropping, right? Like this one looks different than this one. Like these are different. They look literally the same on the ground. Like they look different on the character. Right, if you wear these or if you wear these, it does look different on the character. Like even a game like Titan Quest or like Grim Dawn, using like a 2006 engine has the functionality for this. Like this helmet, it looks like this, right? It looks like this on the character. On the ground? Like, what is this, dude? It looks so terrible. Like, so lazy, rather. It is very lazy. And there are some things here and there, which, well, you could say, I mean, it's only beta, they're gonna fix it for release. Will they, though? I mean, we'll see about that. So far, it just seems like some things in this game seem awfully lazy, and it gives me the vibe of like Blizzard trying to get away with like as little effort as possible to try to make as much money as possible yet again. And just like gives me this vibe, you know, like a AAA company like Blizzard should not have like UI, or like at least not like like this kind of crap, like as terrible as that. Right? And there are two other things actually. There's still no freaking way to have move to and interact, like picking up items, for example, on one button, right? You can have move to interact and your basic attack on left click, and then like force move on right click, for example. But you cannot have basic attack on right click and then move on left click and also pick up items with left click. Like, that doesn't work. It's not there, the functionality. Like, you have to use a different button to then, like, pick up items, like, to interact. Like, interacting means, like, talking to NPCs and, like, picking up items or, like, opening doors and stuff like that. Like, why can't these two be combined? I mean, yes, you could make, like, a macro for your mouse, I guess. But, like, literally every other RPG can do this. Like, why can't not, like, freaking Blizzard do this as well? Like, what the fuck? Also, why is there no item filter? I mean, every modern RPG has a like loot filter, you know? I mean, Path of Exile doesn't in the game. Path of Exile has like these like third-party loot filters, but Path of Exile is also like kind of weird when it comes to like third-party stuff, or like relying on third-party stuff. Grim Dawn has an in-game loot filter. Last Epoch has probably like the best in-game loot filter I've ever seen. And this game just, like, it doesn't have one. Like, what? So like when it comes to some like functionalities, like rather basic functionalities and like the UI, it's like, I don't know. I mean, the UI itself, I would give maybe like a 5. It's still like fine. I mean, this is fine here. Like, this is totally fine. I mean, the buttons that you press could be like inside the icons like Grim Dawn, like a little bit smaller. Yes, they're like a bit too big maybe, and like take up too much space. But I mean, overall, this is like still okay. Like, it's still like a 5. Like, functionality is there, except for item filters and like the font being absolute dog shit. And like search bars being basically like non-existent either. Like, there's no search bar in the stash either. Right? So yeah, like UI maybe like a 5, but like basic functionalities like search bar, loot filter, and force move, just like a 0 out of 10, right? Like, it's not existing. Overall gameplay loop, or like overall longevity of the game, it will depend a lot on the Paragon system, to be honest, like how deep the theory crafting is gonna be, like on the items in the Paragon system that you can get later. Otherwise, I can see this game being maybe like a game that you put into like 50 to 100 hours, play like one character to max, maybe like play one, like each class to max once, and that's it. And then, I don't know, unless like future seasons introduce like more interesting like theory crafting or like more interesting like ways to min-max your character, I don't really see this game being like as deep as like PoE or Last Epoch or even Grim Dawn. It's just, I don't know, it's not gonna be like a game that you would play like forever, unless you really, really like something like Lost Ark, to be honest. But Lost Ark had like endgame raids, and this game for endgame has basically like just dungeons. I mean, you can of course like group up for dungeons as well, so they can become kind of like raids in a way. I don't know. I mean, the overall verdict for this game, I think it's decent. For me personally, it's like a little bit too much Lost Ark in it. It feels better to me personally than Lost Ark though. Lost Ark was a game that I couldn't play more than like 20 to 30 hours though. So do keep in mind that this game will have a battle pass, like one free battle pass, and then one paid battle pass. The paid battle pass, right now at least, would only have cosmetics, so it's not gonna have any pay to win at least. And then on top of that, you will have to pay for future expansions. The base price is $70, with like $90 for the play 4 days early version. I don't know, like, it might be a little bit expensive as well. Like, I don't know, don't get me wrong, like, the game is not bad at all. I would rate the game like maybe like a 7 out of 10. But like with the price tag, it's like a 6 out of 10. So honestly, Diablo 4 is not reinventing anything. Nothing. It is only taking things from other games that exist, that work well, and puts them all together. Blizzard has been doing this in the past as well. Usually to at least decent to actually great success. And that's not like a bad way to create a game necessarily. Like it's rather like a safe and lazy way in a way. But if it's polished and it works well, and the presentation is good, and if the balance was good too, then it would be a good game. As it stands, as I said, it's probably like a 6 out of 10 overall for me right now at least. That might change however in the future. Anyway, that's like my thoughts on this game. At least from the first weekend from beta, I played all 3 classes. It is fun, it is very fun. Check out the next beta on this like coming up weekend if you would like to, you know, not look at like other people's opinion, but rather create your own opinion about this game. Let me know what you think about this game as well in the comments below. Let me know, and I'll see you around on the next one. Thanks for watching.